From the Mapleview Animal Hospital studios, this is the WHTC Morning News with Gary Stevens and Peg McNichol on 99.7, 1450 WHTC and WHTC.com.
Welcome back to the WHTC Morning News for this Thursday, November the 5th. I find this intro music, it comes on a rotator, maybe a little misleading considering how the November 3rd election went before, during, and after. We are once again joined by Hope College political science professor, Dr. David Ryden, on the other side of our Zoom connection. David, good morning. No, mellow and quiet is not the 2020 election.
I don't know, Gary. It's behind me. I'm feeling kind of good. I'm looking to 2022 already. So it pretty much has played out right how we expected. Extended time for voting, the inevitable lawsuits, and yet the results, the picture is becoming much clearer. And ironically, I think other than the presidency, which is likely to shift, Donald Trump's path is narrowing with the passing of every hour. It's remarkable how much things are going to look the same when we come out of this. That's surprising to me. We've been through a pandemic, racial unrest, a new Supreme Court justice, and any number of other things in the past year. We've had a generation's worth of history in a year. And usually that causes tumult at the polls, and we're not really seeing that. There's a degree of stability kind of coming out of this that I think is surprising.
Yeah, I tend to agree with you on that, David. I'm going to throw a word, and we posed this with Bill Heisinger last half hour, and he sort of went around the question. But
he is a public office holder after all. They are quite at that, yes.
Word is mandate. Sometimes we see that thrown off in a lot. A guy a man or woman wins an election, say by a good margin. They say, "Oh, I got a mandate to be able to do what the majority of the people want." Well, is that just simply rhetoric now, or responsiveness? I think is the thing that I'm talking about. Do you sense that candidates really need to be more responsive to their constituents, even those the ones that they didn't vote for them?
Kind of notions of mandate are laughable in a political environment where we have this bifurcated public, right? Where we have this partisan parity, right, between Democrats and Republicans, and the public. The electorate has sorted out in terms of their partisan loyalties. So I don't know how a president who wins the office with 280 or 90 electoral college votes can claim a mandate, right? Mandates come when you win 60% of the popular vote, not when you win 52. If there's a message or responsiveness, I would argue, no. Our office holders are too responsive. They're sort of hypersensitive to their particular constituencies. And with this Congress and state legislatures where you don't have a lot of overlap, right, where they have sorted out along partisan lines, that hyper attentiveness to their constituencies makes it awfully hard to get anything done in Congress. And so the inability to sort of work towards a common good is extremely difficult now. And that means being a little less responsive to your own base.
Yeah, we'll see how things play out as we talk today. Still some things that needs to be settled on the voting side, and maybe we might have a final solidarity by, say, January 20. I'm
hoping.
Your thoughts south of here, the 6th congressional race. Fred Upton won. Some say a bigger margin. I'm going to use a term MERS News used on Wednesday morning. John Hoadley underperformed in Kalamazoo. Did you get a sense that maybe we maybe sold Hoadley a little bit bigger than what he really was, or was Fred maybe stronger than we thought we were?
Yeah, that's a good question. It's always a challenge in these congressional races to really do a kind of a fine, granular analysis of what is going on. It certainly was a surprise to me. You know, you and I, Gary, talked about Upton always sort of being on the ledge. Maybe in this time, someone like Fred Upton is kind of a dose of kind of calm and sort of reassuring experience. And that was maybe appealing to people in this environment. But, you know, the Huizinga's race, I mean, I think Republicans generally performed much stronger. I had talked to people in Huizinga's, I don't know to what extent Bill talked about this, but they were anticipating it might even be a single digit win. And here he comes out with, you know, with 20%. That's kind of eye-opening. So, yeah, kind of more of the partisan sorting out, I guess. Yeah.
John James, and it looks like Gary Peters basically got Southeast Michigan, and that got him the election. But then again, you know, Republicans have to feel a little bit buoyed that eventually, you know, granted it's going to be 4 years before Debbie Stabenow gets up for re-election. Maybe Republicans can finally end what will be a quarter century away from the most exclusive club in the world.
Yeah, that was, yeah, I don't know if you're John James, right, who's a clear political talent, who has got a great biography, and he's an attractive figure. He kind of breaks the mold of the stereotypical Republican candidate, and yet he can't quite push through. Right, in a state where it just seems it's tough for Republicans to win these statewide offices. Is he going to wait around 4 more years? You know, for him, it's kind of like what comes next and what is winnable. At some point, he has to show he can win a race, or he's going to be a little tainted, you know, by these repeated losses. I had expected more room between his performance and Trump's performance. And that just didn't seem to happen. They just all night, they were within about a point of each other. And that just suggested kind of hardline partisan voting that sort of did him in the end.
I'm going to throw you a curveball question, because we're talking more about 2022 than 2020. And yet one gets, to me at least, gets a figure. I have a funny feeling that Gretchen Whitmer is going to be a big factor. I don't even know if she'll be even going into a cabinet if Biden-Harris win. But I have a funny feeling Whitmer is going to be more of a factor in 2022 in the gubernatorial race. I think she had a factor a little bit with this particular race because of the fact that, you know, for the most part, even though Republicans are railing against her, it seems as if the majority of Michiganders have been pleased with the way she's handled the coronavirus situation, and that could relay to some more political power a couple of years down the road.
It could, yeah. I mean, she's proven to be divisive in the way the coronavirus response has proven divisive, right? And has just fallen along these partisan lines. So she is anathema to a group, but I think you're right. That's a minority group. And I think generally she comes out looking stronger based on her leadership, you know, in the last 9 months, in part because it's been decisive, right? She has acted decisively. So going forward, I don't know, it remains to be seen. You know, I like to kind of look sort of below the national level, and right, Democrats had hoped to perhaps flip a chamber in the Michigan legislature. They had targeted a number of other states where they were hoping to do the same, and they came up empty-handed. And so, you know, I have heard reports of just the partisanship between the governor and the leadership in the state legislature. They never talk, right? It's been like forever since they even had a phone call. That's not a healthy environment. So her orders have been set aside by the Supreme Court, though we now have the state Supreme Court having flipped. and she's looking at a state legislature run by Republicans. What's that going to look like going forward? I don't know. And then even more nationally, right, at the subnational level, right? I've not heard much about this being a census year, redistricting coming on the heels of this. Republicans did surprisingly well at the subnational level. They're going to be exercising more influence than Democrats in that whole realm of redistricting. If you're a Democrat and you're taking the broader view, that's got to be troubling, I think.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see how this independent commission for voters, right, not politicians, works out in Michigan for redistricting. One final thing, David Ryden, and again, I'm going to throw you a curveball. Hopefully you can hit it. If not, I can understand that.
Yeah, I was always a pretty good fastball hitter. But give it to me, Gary.
All right. The group All Business is Essential from Northern Michigan, Eric Kalulin, is behind it, a Northern Michigan small businessman who hired a high-powered Washington PR firm to basically champion the cause of businesses that were shuttered during COVID-19 by Governor Whitmer against it. And he continues to rail against the governor. He continues to make statements. Can we even think of him as being a player in 2022? Or is it just simply he got his 15 minutes of fame this year?
Yeah, so that is a curveball. That's not what I thought I would get from you, Gary. So I will take a pass on the narrow curve in his viability as someone running for office. I have no idea whether that's
whether or not he's even going to want to run. But still,
right.
If he's going to be up in public, people are going to talk to him about it.
Yeah, so I'm gonna do a Bill Heising, and I'm gonna answer the question I wish you would have asked, which is sort of the larger question moving forward on the pandemic, which is public health and the economy, and how do we continue to balance those? What's that going to look like politically moving forward for the governor, for the state legislature, for Congress, which apparently is going to be Nancy Pelosi with a skinnier majority, and probably Mitch McConnell with a narrow Republican majority, right? Are they going to be inclined to reach some sort of deal on a stimulus? To me, this explains how things broke out, right? It explains this stability and this partisan loyalties, where on the one hand, right, Republicans tend to be much more concerned about economics and shutdowns and much more averse to those, while Democrats being much more concerned about public health and the ongoing coronavirus numbers. And that dynamic will be with us. So from the top down, from Joe Biden down to Michigan state politics and elsewhere, right? How are we going to go forward on that? I mean, Joe Biden, if he's president, is he going to push increasing measures to try to corral the coronavirus? Good luck with that. I don't know if I don't know how accepting people are going to be of that. Right? The economy in a lot of ways is really kind of bouncing back. But are we going to be willing to put more constraints on the economy? These are kind of big governance issues across the country at multiple levels of government. And these are going to be the challenges, whoever's occupying those seats.
He is Dr. David Ryden, a political science professor at Hope College. He joins us from time to time to talk about not only politics, but elections as well. David, I want to again, thank you for your time over the last couple of weeks or so. And we'll try to get together and chat, maybe not so much of a wide variety of time. And no, I'm not going to send any deputies to talk to you like the Scott J. Watson.
Good. Thanks, Gary. Appreciate it.
David Ryden, thank you very much. On Real News Now, 99.7 and 1450 WHTC.